So I decided I wanted to start a ASMR YouTube channel. And I thought, what a better thing to talk about than something I really love. That being manga. So, for my first video, I wanted to choose a series that is very nostalgic for me. That series being Sailor Moon. Couple things. I have no intention of being family friendly, so I'm sorry. And while I am talking about manga, there won't be really any direction with the video. I will briefly go over a synopsis of the plot, and then from there I just want to talk about my feelings in regards to the series and its characters. So, I am going to be referring to the Eternal Edition. The Eternal Edition of the manga. Some people like the new artwork, others do not. But I like it all just the same. I think there's something really classic about the 90s art that the creator, Naoko Takeuchi. I'm going to be doing my best to pronounce the Japanese names, so bear with me. But I think even her updated art is really, really stunning. One of the definitely appealing things about Sailor Moon is how timeless the art is in regards to shoujo art. It's honestly some of the most classic or peak shoujo in my opinion. You can fight me about it. So I'm starting at volume 10, if you can see that. Volume 10. This cover features all of the Sailor Scouts, so I thought it'd be easiest to start here and then go backwards. This is the final volume in this edition, so starting at the end and going backwards. So, as I said, Sailor Moon was written and illustrated by a woman named Naoko Takeuchi. And a lot of Sailor Moon was based off of her own school experiences, as well as her love for mythology. I'll get into an example of that a little later. But I just love the series. While it, in some ways, maybe hasn't held up as well as I thought it did, I did reread this for this video. At least in regards to art and its sense of ocean. It's timeless and definitely classic. We have these cute little glasses. So those of you who have never watched or read any Sailor Moon, basically the plot is this. Essentially, in a previous life, Sailor Moon was the Moon Princess, and she fell in love with the Prince of the Earth. His name was Prince Endymion. Prince Endymion. And they fall in love. However, during that time, a big war breaks out between the Earth and the Moon. And everybody fucking dies. So, with the last of her strength, Sailor Moon's mother, Queen Serenity, essentially made sure everyone would be revived on the Earth and live normal lives. And one day, Usagi Tsukino, who is Sailor Moon, who is just a normal 14-year-old junior high student, one day she stumbles across a cat named Luna, who reawakens her Sailor Scout powers, and she is tasked with finding the other Sailor Scouts and reawakening them in order to fight off evil forces that threaten the Earth, the Moon, and the universe. So, they essentially just act as Earth's protectors from all kinds of threats. So, as for the characters, you might recognize her with her iconic blonde hair and 2 buns. However, on this cover, this is what she looks like when she is in her princess transformation. But this is Sailor Moon. Her name is Usagi. And her name essentially translates to Rabbit of the Moon, because she has her little buns. And then next we have, I'm sorry about my ring light, by the way. Next we have Sailor Mercury. Her name is Ami. And then we have Sailor Mars. Her name is Ray. Then we have Sailor Jupiter. Her name is Makoto. And then Sailor Venus. Her name is Minako, but a lot of them just call her Mina. And then we have Sailor Uranus. Her name is Haruka. In the middle here, this character who looks somewhat similar to Sailor Moon. Her name is Chibiusa. So Chibiusagi. And I'll get into her a little bit more later. And then we have Sailor Saturn. Her name is Hotaru. And then we have Sailor Neptune. Her name is Michiru. It's Michiru. And finally we have Sailor Pluto. Her name is Setsuna. refer to scouts as inner and outer sentry. Essentially, inner sentry are the original 4 girls who Sailor Moon recruits to aid her in her fight. So these are the inner sentry, or inner planets, if you will. And then we have these girls down here. These are our outer sentry, or outer planets. So they're just characters who show up usually a little later in the story. And as far as the story goes, there's essentially 5 main arcs to Sailor Moon. I'll see if I can remember them correctly. So we have the Dark Kingdom, then we have the Black Moon arc, and then we have the Mugen Academy arc, and then the Dream arc, and then it finally finishes with the Stars arc. At least that's how I categorized the different arcs of Sailor Moon, and now I think I've seen them categorized by Reddit. So, as I said, Sailor Moon fell in love with the Prince of the Earth, who you might recognize. Most people know him as Tuxedo Mask. He is also Prince Endymion, or Mamoru. These two are in love. And I just love her dress. Look at how ethereal she looks. So he's essentially our male lead of this story. However, I find him to be essentially the damsel in distress for most of the story. He's pretty useless in my opinion. And sometimes it kind of feels like he doesn't even help in situations. When a plotline involves the characters going into the future, they meet the future version of him, and he is much more useful then. So I feel like he's just kind of supposed to be the eye candy of the story. Interestingly, I did notice on my reread through, there is a storyline that I believe they did not include in this version. So, essentially, she has her main 4 guardians or protector: Mars, Jupiter, Venus, and Mercury. And there are 4 villain characters who in their past life were his essentially 4 protectors. Their names were Nephrite, Jadeite, Zoisite, and Kunzite, if I'm remembering correctly. I feel like the first arc kind of blew by because it was so nostalgic that I kind of knew what was happening. But there was a love story between essentially his 4 protectors and her. Each of them were paired up. But on my reread through, they never addressed it. So maybe now go on it, the girls to have more romantic independence. But yeah, it's just something I noticed. Another reason I decided to go from 10 to 1 of the volumes was because each volume, besides the 10th, features 1 to 2 Sailor Scouts. So I thought it'd be easier for me to go over the characters individually that way and introduce them first. So, first up, we have this character. This is Chibiusa, or Sailor Chibi Moon. She is Sailor Moon's daughter from the future. She is sent to the past to aid the Sailor Scouts, essentially future Sailor Moon. She essentially sends her with a letter saying to her past self, please take Chibiusa under your wing and show her the ways of a sailor guardian. I always thought it was just glorified babysitting. But I remember her character being pretty annoying. And she can be, especially in the beginning of the story. But she definitely grows to have a really awesome relationship with Sailor Moon. I like how they rely on each other a lot later in the story. There's a lot of really good love there. Now, anyone who has watched a Red Sailor Moon, I do want to touch on a plotline regarding this character that definitely can turn people off from the series, and people who have read this probably know where I'm going with this. So, in one storyline, she becomes a villain. I believe her villain name is the Black Lady. She is aged up to basically look the same as Sailor Moon, except with pink hair. And as a villain, she kind of steals away Tuxedo Mask from Sailor Moon and is like, Tuxedo Mask is mine now. And she kisses him. Which, it's, rereading it, it's not great. It's a very strange choice. Whether it was a product of its time or different culture, I suppose. It's still really fucking weird. And her character gets a lot better later in the series, but it doesn't help that she's really, really annoying in the beginning, and she also does that later. And it's very weird because Sailor Moon essentially, when she first appears, is very jealous of her, and Tuxedo Mask, taking care of her, says, no, you don't have to be, this is our daughter. And she at some point is like, well, she's still a woman. That's a child. Okay. Now don't come at me with this stupid shit. Technically, in the future, the people of the moon, at least, I don't think the people of Earth are the same, but they don't age the same. So I believe she is like 900 years old, but she just can't grow up. But if it looks a child and is annoying like a child, it's a child. So, bam. I think her relationship with the outer sentry is always some of the best moments from her. Otherwise, it's just her and Sailor Moon, Usagi, bickering over who gets Mamoru's attention. So once again we have Sailor Saturn Kitsuna. Sailor Pluto doesn't have a whole lot to do in the story, but she's a very important character. So, I've obviously talked a lot about time travel, and she is the protector of the gate of space and time. So, the way that they are able to travel between past and present is through her and these little keys that she gives them. So, she's a very motherly character, very, very mature, and she is, I believe, the oldest Sailor Scout in terms of her age. Most of these characters are pictured being in junior high. However, she's usually working as a nurse or a scientist, so she is a full-on adult, and she definitely acts like it. Whereas on the other side, Sailor Saturn is one of the youngest characters. She has the power to destroy a planet in order to save the rest of the universe. And she's a very tragic character. She essentially is used as a science experiment by her father. He infuses her essentially with metal and android parts, so she's like a cyborg. And it's, so Pluto is the guardian of space and time. Saturn is the guardian of ruin and rebirth. Next we have Sailor Neptune, Michiru, and Sailor Uranus, Haruka. I do appreciate that Naoko did include, especially for its time, is the inclusion of queer and androgynous characters in her work. So, these two are in love, and if you watched the American 90s anime, then, pardon me, they're very, very close cousins. So, I always thought that was funny. I think they should have just completely left out the romantic scenes between these two instead of calling them cousins, because it just comes off way more incestuous in the anime. But Haruka is often confused as a boy. She dresses in a boy's uniform for school. And she's supposed to be a very gender-fluid character, as well as 3 characters you meet at the end of the series, the Sailor Starlights. They're a boy idol group, but they are Sailor Scouts, which all the Sailor Scouts are female, so they transform and they are females. So it's kind of fun to see a series with such a progressive take. And for those of you who do not know, the creator of Sailor Moon, Naoko Takeuchi, is married to a man named Yoshihiro Togashi, I believe. And he is the creator of Hunter x Hunter, which is another series really known for its inclusion of queer characters. has a very strong-willed, kind of always wants to take on all of the troubles herself kind of gal. She even kind of flirts with Usagi, Sailor Moon, in the beginning. She's a funny character. Michiru. She's very soft-toned. She doesn't do a whole lot for me. She's kind of supposed to be the quiet beauty. She plays the violin. But one moment I did like with her was when the character did end up calling her ugly and she did not react well to it. It was really nice seeing her kind of change up her always stoic expression. But yeah. And Sailor Uranus is the guardian of the skies, while Sailor Neptune is the guardian of the sea. So, one thing I did want to point out that's so great about collecting these editions is the color art between the pages of the story. For example, in this edition 8, it has one of my favorite full color drawings. Let's see if I can find it. Here we go. It is all of the girls, but they're blondes. And there's this really pretty red motif going throughout the work. I just find it so romantic and really pretty. Next we have Sailor Venus, Minako, or Mina. When she's introduced, she is this Sailor V crime-fighting sort of character before she joins the Sailor Scouts. And I always thought she was really stoic and cool, and she's the leader of the Inner Century. However, after she's introduced, I find her really goofy. All of the girls in their own way, for the most part, at least the Inner Century, are pretty boy crazy, and she kind of gets the worst of it. She has dreams of being an idol, and sometimes that makes her act pretty girly and ditzy. Yeah, she's usually the one who wants the most gossip of the group. She always wants to know who's dating who. She kind of will give the characters that, like, are you talking to a boy? Are you interested in a boy? Who is it? Tell me, I must know. She's a funny character. And she is the guardian of love. Now, when you read Sailor Moon, when Sailor Moon is kind of doing her stance and warning the enemy that she is Sailor Moon, she always says she is the guardian of justice and love, so I was a little confused by that, especially because obviously Venus, Aphrodite, love, just makes sense. But Now here we have Sailor Jupiter, Makoto. She was always my favorite Sailor Scout, and she still is. I like her the same way I like Pluto. I just find her a little more fun as a character. They're both very mature, very motherly to the group. She is a really good cook and gardener, and she loves to feed people. And she's supposed to kind of come off as a very intimidating, strong girl. She's really strong. She's kind of the Sailor Scout that talks more with her fists than her magical wand. But she's supposed to be kind of this intimidating, almost rebel of the school. But she's just a girl who really dreams of settling down and getting married. So I always found that really wholesome. She's definitely the character that a lot of other characters turn to when they need advice or just someone to talk to. She's kind of the first one to throw the punch too, and I always thought that was pretty funny. And Sailor Jupiter is the guardian of courage. So this is Sailor Mars, Ray, and she's the guardian of passion, that fiery, fiery passion. She is like essentially a shrine priest, so she usually gets these omens through her fire, warning her that danger is closing in. So she's really helpful in warning the scouts of upcoming threats. She is kind of fun because she is the one character that is not really boy crazy like the other girls. She's also the character that goes to an all-girls school, so she has a different school uniform than the other girls. And she has 2 pet companions. So Sailor Moon Usagi, she has her black cat named Luna, and Venus also has a cat whose name is Artemis, and of course Artemis and Luna are in love. Everyone's in love. She has 2 crows. Their names are Phobos and Deimos, which are the 2 moons of Mars, and that also translates essentially in Greek to fear and dread. Yeah. Mars is very much, kind of always feels like the badass of the group. She is always on top of knowing when the bad guys are going to strike and acting quickly. And then we have Sailor Mercury, Ami, who is the guardian of intelligence. Now, growing up, I always really loved her design, and I still do. So I think I kind of overlooked her as a character, but rereading the story now, I realize how much I don't really like her. She's probably my least favorite Sailor Scout. I mostly feel that way because she kind of sometimes feels a little useless. She's supposed to be the brains of the group and is able to use her little visor that that she has to kind of seek out the enemy and gather intel. But Luna and Artemis have a little HQ that they work out of. They mostly do the work of locating the girls when they are taken by the enemy. So sometimes Sailor Mercury feels a little useless, especially because I feel like for a lot of the story, all she talks about is wanting to study and make sure the other girls are studying. But it's like, girl, it's summer vacay, it's brat summer, chill. But yeah, she's not bad, just not one of my favorites. Now, all of the covers I've showed you, they all are like reflective, holographic thing going on. It's kind of hard to see, but not with this cover. This is the first volume, and it's just so stunning. Honestly, I started collecting manga not too long ago, but I do have quite a collection now. And I didn't necessarily think I was going to collect Sailor Moon, but I saw this cover and I realized it's only 10 editions to collect, and I had to have it. I just think it's absolutely beautiful. Now, one of the great things I'll say about Sailor Moon is that of all of the characters, she is the character who feels like they grow the most. Let me show you a little something fun also in this first edition. Let's see if I can find it. Here we go. This is the cover of the original manga. This was the front, and then it would wrap around, and this was the back. Sailor Moon, as well as Chibiusa, are quite grating when you first start reading Sailor Moon. She's just very much a crybaby, relies on her friends a lot. But as the story grows, she definitely learns to doubt herself a lot less. And usually it's her friends who are looking for her aid more than she's looking for theirs. She becomes a lot more independent, and definitely you can see how much she loves her friends and the resolve she has to protect them at the end of the story. Something I always found really funny about Sailor Moon is in regards to its villains. The villains are either really hot or really scary. Take, for example, Tuxedo Mask's Guardians, who were villains originally before they realized that they were being corrupted and they weren't actually bad guys. They're all these really handsome, princely looking men, and yeah. But she does a really good job, honestly. The art, I don't remember the villains honestly being all that threatening, but the main villains are pretty good. Essentially, the story is very villain of the week. So for the most of the story, or at least the arc that you're reading, it will follow a villain of the week will essentially be introduced, and then 3 pages later they are defeated. No villain of the week sticks around for too long, and then there's usually the main villain of the arc kind of pulling the strings in the background. I feel like they all kind of have the same dialogue. Like, take care of those pesky sailor scouts and get me the Millennium Crystal, the magical silver crystal that Sailor Moon has that is the most powerful object in the universe. So, I will say, if you ever decide to read this, it's better to read kind of in short bursts. I very much binged this series, and I had a really fun time with it. But with the villains very much just being introduced, saying, I will take care of those pesky. No, they're dead before they can even finish their sentence. They're dead. And when you kind of read that, after like 5 of those kind of villains in a row, it can be a little tedious, but the story usually gets to be its best at the end of the arcs once the big battle is occurring. That's always a fun part to read. I'm glad to own these. I think the art's beautiful, and it's a fun story to reread as an adult. So, obviously this was a lot more just kind of a rambling video. If I do another video, I have a few ideas, but if there's a manga series that you're interested in me talking about, let me know. Or just feel free to make fun of my nails in the